Friday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand, happy to be back for another day. I hope you guys are having a tremendous day out there today. Really good show coming up. It is my pleasure to bring you an interview with Bob Motzko, Gophers men's hockey coach, in a little while here. Really enjoyed chatting with him a couple days ago, so I'm going to run that for you guys. Gophers have a series at Notre Dame starting tonight. They're off to a 10-2 start. We'll get into this season. We'll get into big picture stuff with the program, all sorts of good stuff. Bob, a great guy, great perspectives on everything, so stick around for that here in just a little bit. I've got 3 levels of football that I want to get to at the end of the show: NFL, college, and high school. So stick around for that as well. First, though, what did I miss? Wolves and Wild both played last night. Could not have been a more different outcome. Both of them played in Canada. The Wild, which I'll get to in a minute, has had a lot of success on these Western Canada trips. Calgary, Edmonton. They seem to do well out there, generally speaking, and they did beat Edmonton 5-3 last night. Freddie Gaudreau, 2 goals. Again, more on that in just a little bit. The Wolves, something's broken here. I don't know how broken it is, what needs to happen, whether I'm overreacting because they never win in Toronto. This is 20 straight games that they have lost in Toronto. An amazing stat. You've got to go back to 2004, the KG MVP season, the last time they beat the Raptors in Toronto. Amazing. I don't know what it is, because the Wolves have had some good teams in there. The Raptors have certainly had some bad teams in there. Certainly there have been some teams where Toronto was the better team, but Toronto came in like 3-12, something awful, like one of the worst teams in the East. Again, felt like an opportunity for a get-right game for the Wolves, who had won 2 in a row and had 3 days of practice, right? Or 3 days off, at least. They hadn't played since Sunday, since they beat Phoenix on the Julius Randle buzzer beater. Everybody, good vibes, positive thinking. You got some time to work on fundamentals, work on your offense, work on everything. And instead, you lay an egg to one of the worst teams in the East, worst teams in the NBA. Not good. No Mike Conley Jr. in this game, which again highlights a problem. They got killed in the paint. I think Toronto outscored them by 14 points in the paint, which again underscores another problem. Here are the 2 biggest problems with this team as I see them right now. And no, it's not Julius Randle. Dante DiVincenzo needs to shoot better, but he's still a good player. I'm not as worried about the trade, the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, as a lot of you guys are, because I think they might be about where they are right now, even with Towns. I'm worried, that last year was the outlier year, that they're not this consistent Western Conference threat, that last year was the outlier, that they're more of a nice 45-win team that can get into the playoffs, might need to go in through the play-in like they did in 2021-22 and 2022-23, that last year was the anomaly, because they are trending right now to be more like the 2 previous teams instead of last year's team, and that would be 3 out of 4. So I worry that is more representative of who they are. Specifically, I worry, that they don't have a sustainable offense when Mike Conley is injured, as he was yesterday. He had a sprained toe, didn't play. I worry that even when he's in there, they're not all that good, because he's 37 years old, showing every bit of signs of his age, and that their only other true point guard on the roster is a 19-year-old Rob Dillingham. 37 and 19 are a fine average age. 37 plus 19 is 56. 2 point guards who were 28. Sign me up for that. Right now, they do not have a point guard in his prime, and that is hurting them when they're trying to play this kind of flow-style offense that Chris Finch likes to play. So that's problematic to me. The coaching of it is problematic to me because they need more structure when there's no Mike Conley Jr. Dillingham played 10 minutes last night, hurt his own ankle, by the way, in that game, did not return, and was a minus 14. They haven't worked him in nearly enough. He doesn't look like he's ready. Everybody on the bench looks like they could be ready, but they don't play. So that's coaching. So I guess there's three things that I'm worried about. One is coaching. One is the point guard play. The other thing I'm worried about is outside of Rudy Gobert, there is not a single 4 or 5 center or power forward on this roster that can play a tiny bit of defense. They are terrible defensively on the interior. They're getting killed on the interior. Karl Anthony Towns is not a great defensive player, but he was dialed into this system in a much better way than the guys they have right now. Julius Randle, Naz Reid, who, by the way, banged knees at the end of the game. We'll see if he's okay. Didn't really get an update on him after the game. They absolutely need, and I don't know if this comes at the trade deadline, when it comes, where it comes. They need some sort of other answer at point guard or some other system to play. You got to get Conley going, you got to get Dillingham going, or you got to figure out how the offense flows with anybody in there running the offense. And they absolutely need, I've been screaming about this for years, they absolutely need a young, springy big who can play defense. You saw what a difference it made for the Mavericks last year in their run to the finals. You see what a difference it makes on a lot of these teams. Somebody who can rim protect, somebody who can keep teams like Toronto, and not a good team, from just running roughshod down the lane. They've got some holes on this roster. They've got some depth on this roster, but they have some imbalance that they need to fix or correct or figure a way around. Otherwise, this thing is going to be permanently broken and not just temporarily broken. The Wild, like I said, far from broken. Kirill Kaprizov gave them a scare, left the ice after a knee-to-knee hit, but came back and finished a 5-3 win over Edmonton. Like I said, Freddie Gaudreau, 2 goals. The balance on this team, the depth on this team has been impressive. Kaprizov playing like an MVP contender will always help, but you got Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson-Ek, Brock Faber. You've got a lot of high-end players playing at or near their high-end potential right now. This is not just a one-line team. This is not just a one defensive pairing team. They're getting solid goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury was fighting it a little bit early, but finished with 28 saves, allows 3 goals. They're getting solid play all around and spectacular play from their best players. It's not a fancy formula. It is just a proven, tried and true formula. They're getting up and down the ice. They often look like the better team on the ice. This is not a team that's hanging on to win 3-2, that's just getting hemmed into their zone and hanging on for dear life like some of those Wild teams of the past. This is a team that looks the part, in addition to having the record that suggests where they are. So just an impressive start. I think maybe I undersold or underrated what it meant to have John Hines, be able to coach and have his system from the start of the year. Remember, he came in at the middle of the year last year, trying to kind of rescue them from the slow start under Dean Evason. This team is 13-3-3 right now, including 9-1-2 on the road. That is extremely impressive. They're playing a style that looks like it's fun, but also effective. Again, long way to go. 19 games into the season, but I sure like where the Wild are right now a lot more than I like where the Wolves are. Great to be joined right now by Gophers men's hockey coach Bob Motzko. First time on the program, I believe. Bob, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It feels like hockey season now that we got a little snow on the ground, I suppose. It's always hits me. It probably doesn't hit you because you're in the middle of it, but it's like when hockey season starts and it's like early October, it almost feels too soon. I'm not quite ready for it.
Well, we're still spoiled. We haven't seen snow in 2 years, and I'm okay if we don't, but I think this year we're going to get paid back.
We might. We didn't really have winter last year. We'll deal with it. We'll be all right. Early on in the year, obviously, you guys are off to a nice start. This is kind of still probably a lot of the feeling out period, though, for figuring out your roster and figuring out who does what, who goes where, what you have to work with. But have you seen so far kind of the beginnings of what the identity of this year's team might be yet?
Oh, for sure. There's no question that been a lot of good things that have happened, and it's always a combination of returning players getting back into form, the emergence of new players and or transfer that are going to take hold, and then kind of how the puzzle comes together. And if this is, we're a third of the way through, so we've got real strong indications. But yet we still have a long way to go. And I'll give you one example of that is like injuries are just part of sports. They hit everybody. Well, they're nailing us right now, and that slows down some of the development, and it slows down some of that. So we saw it in glimpses. Cal Thomas has been down now for 3 weeks, and Augie Falloon went out, and then we're going to lose Paulson until Christmas. And this is all normal. And we're handling it all fine. So we'll be anxious to get the band back together. Right. But in the meantime, we're watching this growth of like a Matthew Wood who transferred in and is a junior, find his way, or the emergence of Connor Kurth, in his junior year is really having a terrific start, and Brody Lamb a terrific start, and then Snuggie starting to feel it more and more. Jimmy Clark in his sophomore year, like just using that as an example. We're not even getting into the decor yet, but all of those little 1 + 1 is 2 + 1 is 3 are starting to add up to where we're excited about this group.
You mentioned Matthew Wood. I feel like I don't hear as much about the impact of NIL, transfer portal, in men's hockey as we do about football, men's basketball. Is that just my ignorance, or what has been the impact of those seismic changes in college sports on your particular sport?
Well, it's sure not even in the same stratosphere as what's happening in football and basketball, but it's out there. And impact, I always kind of think hockey's kind of like a 5-year lag behind when things like that happen. Even the transfer portal, which is now, everyone's trying. It's just, it's off the rails in football or I don't even know if off the rails. It's warp speed in football, basketball, and we're kind of trudging through. And it's out there. It's having an impact, but it's like 5 years before we really figure it out. But NIL and revenue share, it's all part of it, but it's not really having an impact right now. But it's coming. Okay. Like I always say, I might say that today, and all of a sudden tomorrow, it's there.
How do you know when you like a team? Like, what are some of the attributes that you say, okay, I'm starting to like this team? Every team's different. They're not all created equal. You got to love them. You got to love them to a certain degree. But what are some of the things that you say, okay, I really like this team?
I was kind of like it to your kids. You always want to say, I like all my kids. Well,
right.
Who's kidding who? You always got a favorite. You're right. At least for a month or a week, you got a favorite.
Right.
And your own kids. But this group is special, and we've had it for a while. We've got great leadership. So you come to the rink and you got kids that really care about your program. They care more about the success of the program and for each other. And that's not the case and sometimes it's not that it's bad. Like, sure. I want people to know that, but there's times that it's special. It's different. And I'll even go back to 2 years ago. We had that, the Brock Faber and Lacombe and Ryan Johnson and Nyes and Cooley. And, I'm just bringing up some of the big names. Mm-hmm. And then Jackson Nelson, great leadership through that. Just, it's been going on a while. Well, it's still with us. It's still inside our program where you know, this is a group of guys that truly, truly care for each other. And there's a great bond in there. And okay, then from a coaching standpoint, got talent, and you can see it. And Jimmy Snugger would make a commitment to come back, which was the right one for him to come back in his junior year in our world where guys can leave. Right. Just using that as one example. So, and I call that the eyeball test, and this team passes the eyeball test, and it's showing. I mean, even the other night, that was really our first loss of the year. Like 3-on-3 gimmick hockey, and win or lose. If you win it, you love it. If you lose it, you don't. But that's the one we lost early. But it took us till mid-November to have our first loss. So that tells you something. Now it's important that we rebound from a loss and get back on top of it. But this is a pretty cool group.
Hockey is, unique gets overused, but it's fairly unique at the U of M, where you've got some built-in advantages that have been, earned over decades that just other programs with you just don't have. How does that, how do you kind of mix in that swirl of that's a benefit, it's also got its challenges, it creates expectations, everybody wants you to win a national title every year. How do you deal with all that comes with that? Well,
you don't take the job and know that that's there here when you take over a job like this. And you're going to be in the fact is we are in the conversation, and we have been for 4 or 5 years at the winning a national title. And that's the one door we've got to kick open. But you can't have. It's just part of it. So when you come to the office today, you don't talk about that. You don't worry about that. We got to make sure we're in the NCAA tournament, and those are the things you got to control. How building your culture, having your leadership take hold, then the details to your game. You just concentrate on climbing that mountain with your team, and every coach in every sport is doing the same thing. You got to have great structure and detail inside how you play, and then you've got to play with an edge, and you got to play with competitive spirit. And then you have to be fortunate in sports, being healthy and then working toward playing your best at the end of the year. And that's something that we've been able to do. And knock on wood, that's what's going to happen with this group. And we're different too. I've been quoted a lot of times, we start during football season and we end during baseball season. This is a marathon sport.
It is.
You've got fall sports that are winding up right now. Well, we're just we started when they did, and we're just scratching the surface. We're far from the halfway point, and so it is a battle, and that's why you got to surround yourself with just great young men and the leadership that helped pull this thing through, and a great staff, and you're on this journey together, and then you got to enjoy it. You got to have fun in
it. We've brought up a lot of the things that bring challenges, pressure, fun also to this job. Obviously, you've dealt with personal tragedy in the time here. How are you doing? How are you kind of as you sit right now and thinking about the job you're doing right now?
I appreciate the question. I really don't ever speak about it personally, but I'm in a club that you wish nobody's in, and you do. You have two worlds. You have your world before, and you have your world after.
Yeah.
But I have hockey that is a constant, for me, and to be surrounded by these young men and my staff that ground my world and help it go through. The other world is deep and dark and private, and you find ways to battle. And there's so many of us out there that have that. But I'm very fortunate that I have this in my life, and I know my kids follow it and are part of it, and along with my wife, and it helps pull us through. And that's all you can do.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, and I don't mean to take you to that place. What, you talk, obviously you love this. You wouldn't be doing it if you didn't love it. There's a lot of perks to the job, but it's also stressful. What do you love the most about coaching? What is it that drew you to coaching in the first place?
Well, it's sports. Sports were growing up in Austin, Minnesota in the 70s. And Austin was a big sports town, and if you know the history. But we played and I moved in next to the president of the Austin Youth Hockey Association, Jim Sack. So hockey, I had no choice. My family, we had three boys. We were gonna play hockey.
Yeah.
But football, baseball, hockey, and you went from one sport to the next, and that's all you did back then. Not to sound like an old guy, but any of us that grew up in that area, it's what you did. You played sports, and we had great coaches. You didn't know it at the time until after. Like one of the greatest baseball coaches in the history of our state's Dick Sells. One of the winningest coaches, and I got to play for him for 2 years, and Dick and Howie Stry, Don Fox was and Al Ekman were our football coaches. Like you remember that, and I'm in my city now, and that had just tremendous impact on your life. So sports and my buddies in sports, that's how you got through it. And so why I do it today, I don't have an answer, and then the Austin Mavericks, USHL, moved to Austin, and Lou Vero came in, coached Olympic teams. I was at that age where I got to do training with Lou Vero, and I saw hockey at a whole different level. And then that led me to go to the USHL. And just the quick snapshot is sports just consumed your life. And I just kind of was like a sponge in a Super Bowl. I just kept bouncing with the ball. And then hockey choice. And, did I ever think that I'd end up being the Minnesota Gopher coach? Never. Or the St. Cloud State coach or a World Junior coach. You just go along for the ride like anyone that gets into their career. And when you look back, it's the people that I've been connected with, and, Don Lucia, Herb Brooks, George Gwozdecki, Frank Serratori. These are all, Mark Masley, all the guys I work for, and the coach assistant. Everybody that's got a path, it's the people that you're on your path with. You're never at the end of your life and you raise your hands. Me, I did it. Boy, was I good. Yeah. No, when you're at your end, it's all the people that you surrounded yourself that helped pull you along. And I have been one lucky dude to been around a lot of good people.
You mentioned a lot of names. I mean, obviously shows how long you've been invested in this, how much hockey you've seen. It feels like the game is in a really good place right now, just in terms of how it's being played, the action. How would you describe the kind of transformation that you've seen just in how hockey is played over the years?
Well, I'll answer it in two ways. USA Hockey, the growth we've seen in USA Hockey. I mean, you go back a couple decades. I mean, it was Minnesota kids and Massachusetts kids, sprinkled in with some Michigan and New York kids, but two states dominated the market. 1980 Olympic team was Minnesota and Massachusetts, like example. Well, the National Hockey League now, you think we got three teams in California, Las Vegas, and hopefully we get a team back in Phoenix, and Atlanta's had a team, and Florida's got teams, and then they're winning Stanley Cups. Florida, Tampa Bay, Vegas, Anaheim Ducks, LA, they've all won Stanley Cups. What followed that was great, and you have a lot of former NHL players then who have, gravitated to live in those areas. And, and they end up coaching all their kids. So we've had a massive growth of high-end talent in our, Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes are from Arizona, two of the best players in the world, coming from the United States, born and raised in Arizona. So we are doing a great job developing talent in our country and from all over. So it's not just Minnesota now and Massachusetts. It is all over. And it's benefiting. Look, World Junior Championship gold medals we've won now in the last 2 decades, in 6 or 7. And then we get to host the World Junior tournament next year here in Minnesota. And then we also now, and my second point, you have when we all grew up playing baseball, every dad had played baseball. And so dads knew how to coach baseball.
Yep.
When we grew up, like dads would coach hockey, but none of the dads played hockey. They would volunteer.
Sure.
You now have coaching at our youth level that are former players. And almost all, and I'm at that age now where many, many of my former players are raising their kids. And I ask every one of my, what are you coaching? Well, I got the girls U6, U14 team, and I got the Bantam team. And so we have great coaches now, hockey coaches, guys that were played the sport, coaching at the youth level. That's really helping in our development. So a little long-winded, but USA Hockey is in an incredible spot, and we're all benefiting from it.
Bob, a couple more questions for you. Since you love sports so much, I got to ask, when you're not coaching your team, what is the Minnesota team that you're watching the most?
The Vikings.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
So they're surprising this year, 8-2.
Well, we're making, terrible injury to our tackle, and then we went out and signed another guy. So hopefully that has blustered our line. Our quarterback, we're all talking about it. Sam Darnold has been great, but with a few slip-ups recently. So here now I'm being on that side. But for the most part, and I think we got a terrific coaching staff with the Vikings, and we're diehard. So we're gonna I've lived through 4 Super Bowls, and we're gonna win one. But we got the right staff, and obviously with some high-end talent, JJ, and I love what our running back's doing if we keep him healthy, and our defense has been great. So, and Twins. I'm a diehard Twin fan. That's what you do. You take it. And I even went to a Timberwolves game last year. I jumped on the bandwagon.
There you
go. For a hockey guy. And then look at the Wild are doing right now.
They've been great.
Krill is just crazy what he's doing right now. And of course, I really like their defenseman, that number 7, Faber. He's doing a pretty good job too.
The way he was able to step right in, I'm sure it couldn't have surprised you, but man, he was so good right from the jump.
No surprise.
No.
He's a world-class athlete, and he's got a heart. He's got a heart as big as this building.
Bob, great answers. Appreciate everything. You be well, and good luck the rest of the year, okay?
All right. Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bob Motzko, guy I have a lot of respect for. I've always found him to be both a straight shooter and graceful with his answers, especially whether talking about his team or talking about the tragedy I alluded to, the death of his son, Mac, in a car crash 3 years ago. Just great perspectives from Bob. No easy answers to any of those hard questions, but I really appreciated, again, his time and thoughts on everything today.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Let's finish with the cooler. Like I alluded to at the start of the show, I got some thoughts from 3 levels of football. Let's go top down. NFL. Thursday night games do not tend to be the best in my experience and a lot of your experience, but man, that was a fun one last night. Started snowing in Cleveland in the middle of the game. Browns take an 18-6 lead over the Steelers. Watch that evaporate in about 15 minutes of a fourth quarter. Steelers take a 19-18 lead, but Cleveland gets the ball back, marches down the field. They win 24-19, survive a Hail Mary attempt at the very end. Man, something about football in the snow. Just watching it, playing it, like growing up, I can remember a lot of football games in the snow. There's just something about that added element. Like one of the most memorable games I ever played was like with a bunch of coworkers at a restaurant I used to work at, playing tackle football, and I absolutely just creamed. We were playing tackle football, just creamed one of my coworkers, just brought him to the ground. But it's the snow. It's soft and fluffy. We all had a laugh afterwards. There's just something about it. It adds an element. You could tell Al Michaels, the legendary play-by-play voice who's now working the Thursday night games for Amazon, you could tell he had a little extra pep in his call because of just the environment, whatever happens in a snow game. So just a cool game. If you didn't get a chance to see it, at least watch some of the highlights. Cleveland with a huge upset, by the way. They came in with just 2 wins. Pittsburgh came in 8-2, but Cleveland gets the win, upends things a little bit in the AFC standings. College football, it's the Gophers' last home game of the season this Saturday, and it's a big one. Penn State, again, a double-digit favorite. They're ranked in the top 5 in the country, angling for a college football playoff spot. Gophers trying to improve their bowl position dramatically. They are certainly in the bowl eligibility at 6-4, but they can improve their standing greatly. More on this came on Wednesday's show with Randy Johnson, if you want to go back and listen to it, but wanted to make sure to mention Gophers football Saturday against Penn State, final home game of the year, and then the last regular season game next weekend at Wisconsin. Prep Bowl this weekend as well. 7 classes, all the way from the 9-player up to 6A. Go read our analysis in the Star Tribune, startribune.com. David LeVake and Jim Paulson broke down all 7 games. They disagree on a lot of the winners in this game. I saw at least 3 or 4 where they picked different winners, so it should be a tremendous weekend of football for the preps. Of course, the Vikings playing in Chicago. We went deep on that in a couple different episodes this week as well. So lots to look forward to this weekend as you ramp up for it. Lots of football, lots of other stuff. So enjoy all of that. Thanks for listening all week. And today, probably we'll do a Vikings post-game after the Bears game, and certainly I'll be back on Monday with Royce. Until then, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.